The room was silent except for the faint hum of an old desk lamp that flickered like a dying heartbeat. Shadows danced across cracked walls, giving the space an eerie, almost haunted feel. Ethan sat frozen, his fingers trembling as they brushed against the brittle edges of a yellowed piece of paper. His breath hitched when he saw the first line. "If you're reading this, I'm already gone." A chill ran down his spine. The letter was dated exactly 1 year ago, on the same day his older brother, Daniel, had vanished without a trace. No body, no leads, just an open case gathering dust in the police archives. But now, this letter, hidden inside Daniel's old desk, had surfaced like a ghostly whisper from the past. Ethan swallowed hard. His instincts screamed at him to stop, to crumple the paper and forget he ever found it. But something dark and powerful pulled him forward. His brother's words demanded to be read. "Let's read this last message," Ethan muttered under his breath, his voice barely audible over the pounding of his own heart. As soon as he spoke those words, a shiver crawled up his spine. The air in the room felt heavier, charged with an energy he couldn't explain. He took a deep breath and continued. "You need to listen carefully, Ethan. If you're reading this, then I failed. And if I failed, it means they got to me. But it's not over yet. You have to finish what I started." Ethan's heartbeat thundered in his ears. His brother wasn't the type to joke, and this felt terrifyingly real. "Go to the old greenhouse behind Grandpa's cabin. There's something buried there. Something they don't want anyone to find. But be careful. If they know you have this letter, you'll be next." The last sentence sent a cold wave through his body. "Trust no one." The paper slipped from Ethan's fingers, fluttering to the floor like a dead leaf. He gasped for air, his chest tightening as paranoia gripped him. His brother wasn't just missing. He had been hunted, and now they might be watching Ethan too. A sudden knock at his bedroom door made him jump. He spun around, his breath caught in his throat. "Ethan?" His mother's voice. "Everything okay in there?" He hesitated. "Trust no one." "Yeah, Mom," he finally answered, forcing his voice to sound normal. "Just reading some old stuff." A pause. Then, "Okay, get some rest, honey." Ethan listened to her footsteps fade down the hall before exhaling shakily. His mind raced. He had two choices. Ignore this letter and pretend he never saw it, or go to the greenhouse and uncover the truth. But deep down, he already knew there was no turning back. He had to know what his brother was trying to tell him, even if it killed him. The night was thick with fog, swirling under the dim glow of streetlights as Ethan crept out of the house. Every step felt like walking on thin ice, every sound amplified tenfold in the oppressive silence. The shortcut to Grandpa's cabin stretched ahead of him, a narrow dirt path winding through dense woods that seemed alive with unseen eyes. Memories flooded back as he approached the abandoned property. The cabin had once been a place of warmth and laughter, where family gatherings spilled onto the porch and stories were shared late into the night. Now it stood decrepit, its windows shattered, its roof sagging under years of neglect. Weeds had overtaken the garden, twisting around rusted tools like skeletal fingers reaching for sunlight long denied. Ethan's flashlight beam cut through the darkness as he stepped toward the greenhouse. Its glass panels were cracked and fogged over with age, but the structure still loomed ominously in the moonlight. He pulled out the letter again, rereading the cryptic instructions. Something is buried here, but where? His brother hadn't provided exact coordinates, leaving Ethan to search blindly. As he scoured the area, his nerves spiked with every snap of a twig or rustle of leaves. Finally, near the back corner of the greenhouse, he spotted something. A patch of disturbed earth, darker than the surrounding soil. Dropping to his knees, Ethan began digging with his bare hands. Cold dirt caked under his fingernails as he clawed deeper, his breathing growing ragged with anticipation. Then his fingers hit something solid. Wood. A box. Ethan's hands shook as he pried it free from the earth. The small wooden chest was old, its edges worn and splintered. There was no lock, just a rusted latch. With one deep breath, he flipped it open. Inside was a single USB drive. Nothing else. Confusion swirled in his mind. His brother had risked everything to hide. Before he could react, a twig snapped behind him. Ethan spun around so fast he nearly tripped. His eyes scanned the foggy darkness, but the figure standing just beyond the greenhouse was unmistakable. It was Daniel, or at least, it looked like Daniel. His brother's eyes were hollow, empty, as if he weren't truly there. Ethan opened his mouth, but no sound came out. His vision blurred, his body paralyzed between fear and disbelief. Then, just as suddenly as he appeared, Daniel vanished. Gone. The fog swallowed the space where he had been, leaving Ethan alone in suffocating silence. His breath came in ragged gasps. Was he losing his mind? Or was this exactly what Daniel had warned him about? Ethan clutched the USB drive like a lifeline. Whatever was on this, it held the answers. And now he had to find out the truth, no matter the cost. Back in his room, Ethan plugged the USB drive into his laptop. A single file appeared on the screen, Watch ME. With trembling hands, he clicked on it. The video began to play. A grainy recording of Daniel, looking thinner and more exhausted than Ethan had ever seen him. Ethan, if you're watching this, it means I didn't make it. You can't trust anyone. Not Mom. Not the police. No one. Ethan's stomach dropped. Not Mom? What did Daniel mean? The footage cut to security camera clips, the night Daniel disappeared. Ethan watched in horror as their mother injected Daniel with a syringe, handing him over to two masked men who dragged him into a van. His blood ran cold. This couldn't be real. But it was. And now he was in danger, too. A soft knock at his bedroom door shattered the silence. Sweetheart? Why are you still awake? It was his mother, standing right outside his door. Ethan's heart stopped. Ethan forced himself to remain calm, his mind racing. He quickly ejected the USB drive and shoved it into his pocket. Taking a deep breath, he called out, "Yeah, Mom. Just finishing up some homework." Her shadow stretched under the door, unmoving. She wasn't knocking again, just standing there, waiting. "That's good, honey. You work so hard. But it's late. You should get some sleep." Her voice was calm, motherly, exactly how it had always been. If Ethan hadn't just seen the video, he might have believed she was just a concerned parent checking in on her son. "Yeah, I will. Good night." Another pause. His heart pounded so loudly he was sure she could hear it through the door. "Good night, sweetheart." The shadow disappeared. Footsteps retreated down the hall. Ethan waited. 1 second. 2. 3. Then he lunged for the window, yanking it open. Cool night air rushed in as he climbed out, his pulse roaring in his ears. He needed to get away. From the house, from her, from everything. But as he landed on the ground below, a soft creak behind him froze him in place. A breath, right behind him. "Where do you think you're going?" His mother's voice, right behind him. Ethan spun around, but before he could react, a cloth pressed over his mouth. A sharp, sickly sweet smell filled his lungs. His vision blurred, darkness creeping in at the edges. His body went limp almost instantly, the USB drive slipping from his fingers. The last thing he saw was his mother's face, watching him unreadable. Then, everything went black. When Ethan woke, his head throbbed, and his body felt heavy. He wasn't in his bed or anywhere familiar. The air smelled damp and musty, and the distant hum of machinery echoed around him. Slowly, painfully, he opened his eyes. He was in a dimly lit storage room, wrists and ankles bound. Panic surged through him as he realized where he was. The same kind of room Daniel had recorded his desperate message from. A laptop sat on a nearby table, glowing faintly in the dark. A video file was open, titled, Watch ME. Ethan recognized the title immediately. It matched the one Daniel had left for him. With shaking hands, he managed to scoot closer, just enough to see the screen. The video started playing. Daniel appeared, disheveled and gaunt, his voice strained. "Ethan, if you're seeing this, it means they got you too." Ethan's blood ran ice cold. "And if you want to survive, you need to listen very carefully." Daniel explained everything, the truth about their mother, the organization she worked for, and why Ethan had been targeted. But before Daniel could finish, loud bangs echoed through the video. Someone was coming. The screen went dark. Ethan's heart slammed against his ribs. His breath came in quick, panicked bursts. Then, footsteps. Closer. The doorknob rattled. And then, the door swung open. A tall figure stood in the doorway. Not his mother. Someone else. A man. His face was hidden in the shadows, but Ethan could see the glint of something metallic in his hand. "Looks like you've been busy, kid," the man said, stepping forward. Ethan's pulse skyrocketed. Who was he? Where was his mother? Where was Daniel? The man crouched beside him, watching him like a predator sizing up its prey. Then he smirked. "Your brother was smart." He reached for Ethan's bindings, tightening them. "But you? You should have never gone looking." Ethan's vision blurred as panic took over. No, this couldn't be the end. His body screamed at him to move, to fight, to do something. Then, the man leaned in close and whispered words that made Ethan's blood freeze. "You were never supposed to exist." The lights cut out, and Ethan's world turned to black. Darkness swallowed Ethan whole. For a moment, there was nothing. No sound, no movement. Just the cold press of fear suffocating him. Then, a flicker of red light, a soft beeping. His breath hitched as the glow of a small security panel illuminated the room. The man was gone. The ropes around his wrists and ankles had been cut, and the door slightly open. Ethan's instincts screamed trap. But what choice did he have? With shaking hands, he pushed himself up, his muscles aching from being bound for so long. His heartbeat pounded against his ribs as he tiptoed toward the door. The hallway was empty, silent, but the air, it felt wrong, like something was waiting, watching. Ethan moved quickly, staying close to the shadows. Every step felt like walking on thin ice. Then he saw it. A room at the end of the hallway, the door slightly ajar. A dim light flickered from inside. He edged forward, his pulse skyrocketing. Inside, an old wooden desk, scattered papers, a large monitor, and a file with his name on it. Ethan snatched it up, his fingers trembling as he flipped it open. Page after page of detailed records on him. His school records, medical reports, surveillance photos, conversations transcribed. A timeline of his life, mapped out in brutal precision. Someone had been watching him for years. Then he saw his mother's name, and beside it, a code name, Project Origin. His stomach twisted. His mother wasn't his mother. She was part of something else, something bigger, something he couldn't even begin to understand. And Daniel, he had figured it out too late. A chill crept down Ethan's spine as the pieces fell into place. He was never supposed to exist, because he wasn't normal. A new sound filled the room. A mechanical hum, like an engine starting. Then, the monitor blinked to life. A live feed of his house. Ethan's breath caught in his throat as he saw his mother, standing at the front door. She wasn't alone. A black van pulled up in the driveway. The doors opened. Men in suits stepped out. They were coming. For him. A voice crackled through the speakers. A deep, cold voice. "Run, Ethan." Then, the alarms blared. Ethan bolted. Through the hallway. Down the stairs. His lungs burned as he sprinted through the facility, his mind racing. Everything he thought he knew. A lie. His family. His life. A carefully crafted illusion. And now, they were going to erase him. Forever. His only chance, escape. His feet hit the pavement as he burst through a back exit, the night air slamming against his face. In the distance, headlights, coming fast. No time to think. No time to plan. Just run. Because whatever the truth was, it was bigger than him. And if they caught him, he'd never know why. Ethan ran until his legs gave out, collapsing in a secluded alley far from the facility. Breathing heavily, he clutched the USB drive tightly, knowing it held the key to unraveling the mystery of Project Origin. But as dawn broke, casting golden light over the city, Ethan realized something chilling. The hunters wouldn't stop, and neither would he. Let's read on. Because the truth is worth fighting for. The end.